Pierce County is a fairly large library system. We currently have 17 public buildings, soon to add an 18th next year. And we have 3 bookmobiles, and it's a very large county, about 1,600 square miles. So we have not only buildings, but staff spread over a very large area. And as you can imagine, it is difficult for us to get everybody in the same place. So informal learning takes on a whole new meaning in a system that size. However, I want to make sure that everybody who's in here is not in a large system like that. There are a lot of ideas here that through trial and error that we've discovered at Pierce County that can really apply to small organizations, medium-sized organizations of all sorts. So one of the things that we've been working at for the last 3 years is working to become a learning organization. And really for us on a very basic level, that does mean shifting from this concept of training, and Betha gave us a really good conceptual idea of what we all think of when we think of training, into that concept of learning, and really how do we capture things that were already going on, those informal moments and where important information and learning is happening, but it really is being done frontline at a very simple but not simplistic level. So when I was asked to be part of this group, I really started thinking about all the things that we had done, and I realized that it really kind of came down to 3 main things which really described a journey. And I'm going to take you through that path here. And so really there's the get ready portion. So it's important when you really shift an organization that you have support at all levels. And one of those levels is at the very highest level to make sure administratively that you're really ready to take this on. And one way to reflect that is through the documents that I have listed here. Through your mission and your vision, you have value statements, your strategic goals of what you're trying to accomplish, as well as any kind of competencies that you use. We happen to use a set of competencies that we put together called the 9 skills and qualities. And these are a group of qualities that we want every staff member to have and to represent. So, for example, some of the qualities that we have: teamwork, customer focus, leadership, communication, all basic things that we know that we all want to try to achieve every day. And so we really had to say that these are soft skill competencies that we really want people to have. And it was pretty critical that we lay that being one of the foundations that we laid at the organization. The other thing, by including learning itself, and learning is one of our competencies, is that it does tell all levels of the organization as well as the public that you're not just a lifelong learning institution in the community, but in fact your organization is also a lifelong learning institution. On the logistical side of getting ready, you really have to put somebody in charge. No matter what size library system you are, somebody has to have that on their plate and be paying attention to that. There's a lot of moving parts here. We're going to talk about them in a few minutes, but without one person always looking at learning going on, whether it's informal or formal, and also facilitating many of those conversations and those opportunities, learning will get put to the back. It naturally wants to get put to the back anyway. It's always hard to find time to train, to find time to do all those things. But with at least one person paying attention to that and talking to managers, to staff, to administrators, to the board, and keeping learning as one of those major parts of your organization, it will happen. It may not happen as fast as you want it to, but with somebody paying attention to it, it will begin to happen. 3 of the main areas, of course, that person needs to pay attention to is planning. You have to know where you're headed. So this person will help decide kind of where you're going to go year to year in learning. Also facilitating. Again, informal learning is really important. In our case, though, it's 17 buildings in a lot of places, and the knowledge may reside in one place, and we need someone to help facilitate getting that information around when geography is sometimes a challenge for us. And then, of course, the logistics. You have to keep track of what they're learning, when they're learning, and how they're learning it. And I just want to remind everybody, as Betha said, feel free if you have a question to raise your hand or stop me. Second part of this journey, you have to get set. So the first thing that we did in getting set was we realized that we really had to create a foundation. Another way to look at it is, you want to grow something here, so you have to get the soil ready. And that's what we've spent really the last year doing. So one of the things that I've done in the last year was, if you flip the other side of the handout that you have, you're going to see what we call the foundations of a learning organization. And I'm very fortunate in that we have 3 other people who work with me, and we call ourselves the learning team. And so when I first got to Pierce County a year and a half ago, we really had a conversation, and I said, if we're going to build a learning organization, it has to be on something that's pretty firm and pretty steady. So what does that foundation look like? And this is what we came up with, the foundations of a learning organization. And how we described it was that if we reach this state of nirvana, so to speak, if we have this environment in these foundations here, we really think that we will be able to cope with all the evolution, this word I heard earlier this morning, and revolution, which is another word I heard this morning, and then there's just the plain old word change that keeps coming at us. With that kind of foundation, we would be able to cope with all those things a lot quicker and a lot better, and in fact be rather enthusiastic about them. So the other thing after we created this document that I needed to do was then to go around and talk at a lot of staff meetings, at board meeting, at management meetings, to really try to get the concepts that Betha covered really well down to a level that everybody really understood what we were trying to accomplish. So really about a year of constant conversations, explanations, and then one of the thing that all of the team members do when they sit in meetings or participating in work groups and they see an example of a learning organization or a great just-in-time learning moment or terrific peer-to-peer learning that's happening, we take a step back and we point that out and we say, this is a great idea or this is a great example of how the learning organization should work. And then we put it in terms of our foundational learning things. And so it constantly reminds people, even in the day-to-day, that we're still trying to achieve this. We also created a document that was basically, we called it the philosophical statement on staff development. Again, trying to shift away from that concept of training and get to the point where we were talking about learning and how it happens constantly. So everybody had an appropriate question, which is, what does that mean for me? So we created this document that talked about the role of each staff person, talked about the role of each manager, and then also the role of the learning team. One of the things that I'm sure everybody who's a trainer in here has fought against, they said, oh, we finally hired a trainer, you're responsible for all of that, and we just have to come to whenever you have a training. And in fact, it has to be more of a relationship. So it was important for them to understand the role of the learning team as well, and not just their own. And then last but not least, what we've done in the last year is we've done a lot of activities around team building, and there's a lot of activities, so I won't go into a lot of detail about it. You can choose your own kind of team building. One of the things that we did was we did some Myers-Briggs training, and we also re-looked at our teams and talked about what is the mission and purpose of our teams. So we basically looked at our belly buttons, and we all talked, and we all came to agreement about what each of our teams means, not only for us in our day-to-day life, but also the organization. And then, of course, there's a logistical side to getting ready as well. So if there's going to be a lot of knowledge sharing, again, no matter how small or large the organization, you do have to have some knowledge management organization. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about using your intranet as that particular tool. But there's other ways to do that. But again, you have to have a way to capture at least some of this. You also have to have the opportunity to look for opportunities for people. While they're doing their day-to-day work, they may know what their need is, but they may not be able to find a way to match it to an opportunity. So having a way for them to find those opportunities. And then again, the tracking piece, because the opposite side of learning something is, as Beth has said, is to making sure that you're applying it. Well, in our case, ways, when we do strategic system-wide training, we say that that sets a standard. So we have to track who has already gone to what training and make sure that when somebody's not quite reaching our standard, is this somebody who has been to that training yet or not? And if they have gone to the training, then we have a way and tools to take them back to that training and to make sure that we're all hitting that.